from lost and forgotten to loved by two alien sisters who would burn worlds for him. They thought humans were a myth until he knocked at their front door. Dr. Nyari Velthier stood frozen in the cold wind outside her lab, staring down at the unconscious male lying on the landing pad. He wasn't Ilyari, not Varn, not even one of those scaleback traders from the Inner Rim. No. This one was different, broad-shouldered, rough-skinned, covered in dried blood and torn fabrics that barely counted as clothing. His chest rose and fell slowly. He was breathing. Her second pair of hands moved on instinct, pulling out her scanner. The readings made no sense. His DNA was reacting to the atmosphere, adjusting, repairing, even growing stronger. "This can't be right," she whispered, silver brows furrowing. Behind her, assistant drones hovered anxiously, scanning the skies. No ship had arrived. No signal detected. But here he was, this stranger dropped like a myth at their doorstep. Nyari leaned closer, brushing damp hair from his forehead. He groaned softly. Even unconscious, his scent was strangely pleasant, warm, disarming. And his body? She looked again more carefully. Her scanner beeped, highlighting several unusual readings around his lower half. Her cheeks turned a light shade of violet. Fully intact, definitely male, and very well developed, she murmured, clearing her throat. Scientifically speaking, the Ilyari had always believed the human species destroyed itself centuries ago. Stories of their physicality, their aggression, their passion were passed around like old legends. Wild, chaotic creatures who lived fast, loved hard, and never backed down. And now one lay at her feet, muscles twitching, scars old and new across his chest, and a perfectly shaped jaw that looked like it had kissed a few battles. She tapped her comms. "Quarantine chamber, now." As the medbot carried him inside, Nyari couldn't help but stare. Not at his wounds, but at the calm confidence he wore, even in sleep. It was like his entire body knew it wasn't finished yet. Hours passed. His vitals stabilized. He stirred once, muttered something in a language her translator struggled to match. When he finally opened his eyes, she was watching from behind a reinforced glass panel. Sharp, alert, and a little cocky. "Nice to wake up. To a pretty face," he said, voice hoarse but strong. Nyari blinked. "You're awake." "No, I'm dreaming," he replied, smirking. "And the four-armed angel in front of me is just my brain saying I should have crashed less hard." "Angel?" She raised an eyebrow. "Maybe goddess," he muttered, shifting slightly, and revealing again why her scanner had been so confused. Nyari fought the heat rising to her cheeks. "You're on an Ilyari outpost. My name is Dr. Nyari Velthier, and you are supposed to be extinct." He smirked again. "Surprise. What's your name?" "Mason Hale. Captain. Retired. Mostly." "Species?" "Human," he said casually, flexing his fingers. "You heard of us?" "Only in bedtime horror stories," she muttered. "Glad I made a good impression," he chuckled. Nyari walked into the chamber slowly. She should have kept her distance. This was a scientific anomaly, a discovery of a lifetime. But there was something about the way he looked at her, not with fear or awe or even curiosity, but with challenge, amusement, like they were equals. She scanned him again, this time focused on cellular activity. Her data stream flashed red. "Your DNA is doing things my scanners can't explain," she said quietly. "Welcome to human biology," Mason replied. "We tend to be adaptable." Adaptable didn't begin to cover it. His cells were rebuilding muscle mass faster than anything she'd seen. Nerve growth, bone density, hormonal spikes. Especially those. Nyari stepped back, clearing her throat. "You're a relic hunter?" "Was. Crashed during a dig site breach. I remember a flash, an explosion, then waking up here. No ship entered our space, no signal, you just appeared." I do that, he said with a wink. Women tell me I have that effect. You're lucky I didn't leave you outside. I saw you first. Figured if anyone was going to find me, it should be the pretty one. She rolled her eyes but didn't correct him. There was an edge in his voice. Flirting, yes, but also honest. Grounded. Eliari males weren't like this. Calculated, cold, and let's just say not known for stamina. Mason Hale, on the other hand, radiated heat. Literally. His core temperature was almost 2 degrees above standard. No wonder her lab was suddenly warmer. Nyari turned to leave. You're not going to poke me with more scanners? He teased. Not yet, she replied without turning back. I'm still deciding which part to study first. Behind her, Mason grinned. He was definitely going to like it here. Nyari didn't sleep that night. Not because she was worried. Not exactly. But because every time she closed her eyes, his readings changed again. Mason Hale wasn't stable. He was improving. Fast. His blood cells regenerated at 10 times the Eliari rate. His muscle fibers were tightening, restructuring. And his pheromonal output? Well, let's just say even her filtration mask was starting to feel ineffective. By morning, the lab smelled like trouble. Warm, male trouble. She tried to keep her distance as she entered the observation chamber, but Mason was already awake, sitting upright on the edge of the exam bed like he owned the place. He wasn't wearing much. Again. You always watch people sleep, or am I special? He asked, giving her a lopsided grin. Scientific monitoring, she said coolly. I'll try not to dream anything too inappropriate then, he replied. He stretched and Nyari's secondary heart skipped a beat. Every time he moved, his anatomy shifted in ways her species wasn't prepared for. His body was bigger than Eliari norms, broader shoulders, thicker limbs, and, well, significantly more impressive equipment judging by both visual and scanner data. She cleared her throat, turning toward the console. Your biology continues to mutate. You're adapting to Eliari atmosphere, gravity, nutrition, faster than any known species. Yeah, humans are good at making ourselves comfortable, he said, sometimes too comfortable. Nyari didn't look up, but she could feel his eyes on her, studying, undressing her with nothing but humor and curiosity. Do you flirt with every alien scientist that saves your life? She asked. Only the really pretty ones, he said, with forearms and cheekbones sharp enough to cut glass. She blinked, caught off guard by the honesty. Then something pinged on the console. Her breath caught. What is it? Mason asked, standing up and walking toward her without hesitation. You shouldn't be out of bed, she said automatically. I heal fast, remember? He stepped beside her, looking down at the screen. She tried not to notice how close he stood. The Eliari weren't a touchy species, but he radiated body heat like a sun, and something in her genetics wanted to lean into it. Her voice was soft. You activated something. Mason tilted his head. That a good thing? The gene lattice responded to your presence. That chamber hasn't registered anyone since we colonized this station. It only reacts to viable mates. He blinked. Mates? Nyari immediately regretted saying it out loud, but the word hung there, heavy with implication. Mason leaned closer, a mischievous glint in his eye. Doc, are you saying your ancient alien tech just gave me the thumbs up to date you? I'm saying your genome has properties that mirror Eliari reproductive traits, she said, flustered. He raised an eyebrow. So, we're compatible? Biologically, yes. But emotionally, psychologically, and socially? Absolutely not. He smirked. Guess we'll just have to test one variable at a time. Nyari's lower arms folded across her chest, while her upper ones adjusted the console, trying to block out how fast her pulse was climbing. You're not here to seduce your way through my research lab, Captain. Wouldn't dream of it, Mason said. But you are glowing, by the way. She looked down. Damn it. Her skin had started to shimmer. A natural Eliari biological response to prolonged arousal. I'm adjusting the lighting, she said flatly, tapping the console. Sure you are. She turned sharply, ready to scold him, but instead froze. Mason had leaned in, close enough that she could see the flecks of green in his otherwise steel blue eyes, close enough that she could smell that maddening, warm, earth and leather scent rolling off him. "You're not afraid of me," he said, softly. "Not really." "No," she whispered. "I'm afraid of me." He didn't move. She didn't either. The scanner behind them pinged again, louder this time, a flare of molecular resonance. The lab lights dimmed. The lattice, structured deep in the facility, stirred, ancient systems humming to life. "The gene forge," she murmured. "It's waking up." "Because of me? Because of us?" They locked eyes. And for a moment, the weight of centuries fell away. Just one human and one alien standing too close in a room that suddenly felt way too small. Then he smiled again. That damned smile. "So, what happens if we do test the next variable?" Nyari didn't answer. But she didn't stop him when he stepped closer, and she didn't stop herself when she tilted her face toward his. The first kiss was soft, curious, just enough to prove the theory. The second, that one felt like the start of something dangerous and something beautifully inevitable. The second kiss lasted longer. Nyari had never kissed anyone like that before. Eliari bonding rituals were usually ceremonial, choreographed touches, polite glances, emotion filtered through genetic compatibility, scores. This was chaos wrapped in heat, and her brain was doing backflips trying to understand why she liked it so much. Mason's hands, rough but careful, moved to her lower back. She felt small under his touch, and that was saying something. Nyari was taller than most males of her kind, but he held her like she mattered, like she wasn't a brilliant mind in a sterile lab, but a woman with skin that needed to be touched, and a mouth that wanted to keep tasting his. Her secondary hearts were thundering. She pulled back just enough to catch her breath. "This is scientifically irresponsible," she whispered. Mason grinned, his forehead resting gently against hers. "You say that like it's a bad thing." She tried to scowl, but the way he was looking at her like he'd never seen anything so fascinating in his life melted her resolve. "I should be analyzing your blood chemistry," she muttered, half dazed. "You can do that after," he said. "I promise I'm still 80% blood and bone." She was about to respond, probably with something snarky, when the room trembled softly underfoot. The lights flickered and a low thrum vibrated through the floor panels. They pulled apart. Nyari turned to the console. Her hands flew over the controls. The genetic lattice deeper inside the base was pulsing, its systems syncing to two distinct biosignatures, hers and Mason's. "This shouldn't be happening," she breathed. "The lattice only ever syncs to bonded pairs." Mason peered over her shoulder. "So, we're bonded now?" "No. Well, not officially." She paused. "Not yet," he gave her a teasing smile, "but potentially." "Statistically," she corrected, blushing again. "You are the most compatible being I've ever encountered." "Emotionally too?" he asked. "I said statistically." He laughed. "You're cute when you're evasive." She glared at him, but her body betrayed her. That faint shimmer in her skin was back, dancing along her collarbones like bioluminescent stardust. An involuntary Eliari response, one that couldn't lie. Mason reached out, gently running a finger along the glow. "Your body's answering questions your mouth won't." She slapped his hand away. "Touch me again and I'll inject you with a paralytic." Is that a threat or a promise? "Don't test me. I'd rather test the bed again." "Mason." "Yes." "Doctor?" "Shut up." They stared at each other, the silence thick with tension. Not anger, not fear. Something more dangerous. Hope. Nyari turned back to the console. "This isn't just about us," she said, voice steadier now. "The Forge is selecting you. It's preparing integration protocols." Mason frowned. "What kind of protocols?" Genetic merging. Hybridization. If this continues, it means you're not just compatible, you're essential. Your DNA is activating ancient Eliari reproductive systems we thought were dormant forever. So what? You're saying I'm some kind of galactic fertility god now? She shot him a look. Don't get arrogant. He shrugged. Too late. I'm already imagining statues. You're impossible. And you're glowing again. She groaned and turned away. Her hands trembled slightly as she tapped into the forge's core memory. What she found made her breath catch. Thousands of Eliari lineages, entire bloodlines, frozen in the forge's memory. Locked. Sealed. Waiting for a compatible spark. All dormant. Until now. Her fingers hovered over one data stream. It had Mason's genetic code woven into it, glowing bright. One line of text flickered into view. Compatible host identified. Initiating phase 1, procreation sequencing. Nyari went still. Mason leaned over her shoulder. That sounds sexy. It's not, she snapped. It's terrifying. But she couldn't deny what was happening. Her people had been dying, slowly, generation by generation. Genetic decay, failing wombs, lifeless unions, and now here he was. One reckless, half-naked relic hunter with sarcastic charm and a very distracting torso, waking up the heart of Eliari civilization by doing absolutely nothing but being himself. Mason placed a hand gently on her shoulder. Hey, breathe. What does this mean for you? She turned, slowly. It means, if we continue this, whatever this is, I might not just bond with you. His eyes softened. It means I might get pregnant. He blinked. Wow, first contact escalated fast. She laughed almost hysterically. No, kidding. They stared at each other again. And then Mason said something that stopped her cold. I don't know much about your people, or this forge, or what's happening inside me, but I do know this. I didn't come here to mess up your life. If this is too much, say the word. Nyari looked at him, really looked, and saw no manipulation, no calculation, just honesty, and a strange kind of tenderness. Her voice came out softer than she meant. I don't want you to go. He smiled. Then we keep going. Together. And when their hands found each other's again, the forge beneath the lab rumbled, not with danger, with welcome. The ancient systems weren't just preparing for the next phase, they were celebrating. The forge kept humming long after they left the chamber. Yari didn't say much as they walked through the silver-lit corridors of the research outpost. Her thoughts were racing. Ancient systems had accepted him, her body was reacting to him, and her people's most sacred genetic vault had just whispered something she wasn't ready to repeat out loud. Phase 1. Procreation. Mason, for his part, was still barefoot, still cocky and still casually charming in a way that made every rational part of her mind scream in protest. So, he said, glancing sideways, do your labs usually try to get you pregnant? Or is that just me? Nyari groaned. Why are you like this? He grinned. You mean funny, devastatingly handsome, and apparently galactically fertile? Arrogant, she snapped, and deeply unqualified to handle the weight of what's happening. I'm adapting, he said, stretching his arms behind his head. You said it yourself. My DNA loves a challenge. She stopped in her tracks. Her 4 hands clenched. This isn't a challenge. This is sacred, Mason. The Forge hasn't spoken to anyone in 600 years. It was meant to select the next generation of Eliari guardians, leaders, healers, life-bearers, and it chose you. A stray human with no clan, no legacy. Hey, he interrupted gently, stepping in front of her. I may be stray, but I'm not lost. His voice dropped, quieter. And if I'm really what it needs, what you need, then maybe I'm not so unqualified after all. She stared at him, her silver skin glowing faintly again, not from embarrassment, from conflict. He kept his voice soft. Look, I know I didn't land here by accident. My ship didn't crash randomly. Something pulled me here, to this station, to you. Nyari's heart ached in a way she didn't understand. No Elyari male had ever said something like that to her. Not with conviction, not with feeling. Most of her kind treated affection like a footnote to reproduction. Mason treated it like the whole book. She turned away, blinking fast. "Come with me." He followed without question. They reached the lower chamber, where the Gene Forge's core matrix pulsed with soft golden light. The crystal lattice inside had changed. It now displayed two forms rotating around each other. Her genetic profile, and his. "I wanted to be sure," she said, voice low, "that it wasn't a fluke." Mason stepped closer. "Is it?" Nyari tapped the control sphere. The matrix flared, projecting a shimmering image above them. It was a projection of a hybrid being, tall, graceful, and glowing with traces of both Elyari bioluminescence and human muscle mass. Heart structure? Double. Neural pathways? Multi-threaded. And beneath it all, something more primitive and primal. Mason whistled. "Damn, that's one beautiful baby." Nyari's cheeks flushed violet. "It's not a baby. It's a probability model. I'd still buy it a stuffed animal." She ignored him. "Barely." "The Forge believes we're not just compatible," she said. "It thinks we're an evolutionary answer. My people, we've spent centuries growing sterile, genetically refined until there was nothing raw left. Our ancestors warned us we were losing something, but we didn't listen. And now? Now the Forge says, humans have what we've lost." Mason took that in slowly. "And by that you mean—" She hesitated, then looked him dead in the eye. "Your species is biologically superior when it comes to genetic energy, reproductive strength, and frankly, physical intimacy." Mason tried very hard not to smirk. He failed. "So you're saying humans are the galaxy's greatest lovers?" "Statistically, yes. God, I wish my high school biology teacher could hear this." She stepped closer, folding her lower arms in annoyance. "This isn't a joke, Mason. If we continue this bond, there's no going back. The Forge will cement us as a primary pair. A Genesis unit." "That sounds serious." "It is." He stepped closer too. "Then let me ask you something." Her breath caught. "Do you want to continue it?" Nyari's mouth opened. Closed. Her eyes flicked to his lips. Her whole body was humming, drawn to him like heat to gravity. "I don't know what this is," she whispered. "It's not Elyari, it's messy, illogical." "Yeah," Mason murmured, brushing her cheek. "It's called love." She shivered, and then she pulled him into a kiss that wasn't curious or clinical or cautious. It was raw, deep, hungry. 4 hands tangled in his hair, across his shoulders, pressing him close. His arms wrapped around her waist and lifted her up like she weighed nothing. The core matrix glowed bright, blinding. Systems activated. The floor beneath them rippled like liquid crystal. The air shimmered with energy. The Forge wasn't just observing anymore. It was responding. Every motion between their bodies echoed in the light. Every breath was synced. Every touch sent out waves of energy that fused with the ancient architecture. They fell together, tangled in passion, surrounded by the humming heart of a civilization. And as they moved together, skin to skin, soul to soul, the Forge whispered one final confirmation across the chamber walls. Union confirmed. Genesis initiated. And just like that, they weren't just lovers. They were a beginning. The chamber lights never fully dimmed after that. The Forge pulsed softly beneath them like a second heartbeat, slow, steady, ancient. Its glow wrapped around their bodies as they lay together in the aftermath, still tangled, still catching their breath. Nyari rested her forehead against Mason's bare chest, listening to the rhythm inside him. It was deeper than Elyari pulse, thicker, grounded. It vibrated through her skin like music from an older time. Her people were born in stillness, in silence. But Mason, he was born from motion, and now she was moving too. "I think I just made history," he muttered sleepily, arm wrapped around her waist. "You made a lot of things," she replied dryly, but her voice was soft. Too soft. A kind of reverence coated her words like silk. Mason tilted his head. "Did you just admit that was good?" Nyari didn't answer. She didn't have to. The forge answered for her. New genetic sequence stabilized. Hybrid potential confirmed. Womb. Response active. She sat up sharply. Mason blinked. "Did I say something wrong?" "No," she breathed. "You did something very right." He watched her scan the interface, frowning as the golden script scrolled across the screen like prophecy. "Wait," he said slowly. "Are you saying—" "Yes. I might be." They stared at each other. Mason opened his mouth, closed it, then ran a hand through his hair and grinned in disbelief. "Well, damn," he said. "I don't even have a toothbrush here." Nyari laughed, more from nerves than humor. "We don't keep those. Eliari oral bacteria are photosynthetic." "Of course they are," he said. "Why wouldn't your species literally glow from the mouth?" But her laugh didn't last long. The forge was still humming. The data pouring from its core was no longer just focused on them. Now it was, reaching outward, toward the rest of the galaxy. "Mason," she said, standing. "Something else is happening." He pulled on the closest fabric, half of her lab coat technically, and joined her at the console. The holographic projection showed dozens of blinking glyphs, all spread across star charts Mason couldn't read but understood instinctively now, thanks to the forge's influence. "Those are other forges?" She nodded slowly. "Seed sites from before the collapse, and now they're waking up?" She didn't answer. Her hands moved fast, checking security protocols. One by one, the glyphs lit up in response to their signal. The forge was broadcasting their genetic resonance. A call across the stars. Genesis confirmed. Activation protocol widespread. Begin search for additional viable hosts. Mason's voice went low. "That means others will come, right?" "Yes." "Good others?" Nyari hesitated. "Not all." He turned to her. "What kind of attention does a human who just got an ancient alien bioweapon pregnancy miracle machine pregnant usually attract?" "The wrong kind," she admitted. "Political factions, corporations, pirate fleets, scientists who believe hybrids should be controlled or eliminated." Mason sighed. "Of course. First time I get lucky with a gorgeous alien, and now I'm a walking fertility warhead." "You're more than that," Nyari said, almost too fast. She realized what she'd said, then paused, then added, "You're important." "Important?" he repeated with a grin. "Coming from you, I think that counts as affection." But there was a shift behind his humor. His eyes lingered on her stomach, then back to the projection, to the thousands of blinking points. "You said your people were dying out," he said slowly. "What if this, us, it's not just science? What if it's the future?" "It might be." "You're not scared?" She didn't answer immediately. Then, with one long breath, she stepped close and rested her 4 hands on his chest. "I'm terrified," she whispered, "but I'm also alive. And for the first time in years, I want to fight for something that's not a theory, not a report, not a cure in a bottle." She leaned up and kissed him again, slow, firm, certain. "I want to fight for us." And the forge agreed. The room trembled as more systems lit up. Defense grids, tracking nodes, emergency broadcast filters. Across the galaxy, ancient structures blinked to life, triggered by the only thing they had waited millennia to see. A true hybrid bond, and somewhere, far away, something watched. A signal pulsed silently back from a distant point in the dark, unseen, unnamed, and not happy. But in the glowing heart of the forge, Nyari and Mason stood hand in hand, skin to skin, heartbeat to heartbeat. One alien, one human, and one spark of life that would rewrite the galaxy. Together, they had awakened more than a machine. They had awakened destiny. The stars above the station shimmered brighter that night. But it wasn't peace. It was the forge, still pulsing, still sending signals into the void, announcing what had happened between them like a beacon, a mating call, a flare. The galaxy was listening. Mason didn't like the way Nyari's fingers twitched as she stared at the long-range scans. "What is that formation?" he asked, stepping up behind her. "Those ships. I don't recognize the shape." She didn't look away from the screen. "Because they're not friendly," she said flatly. "That's a configuration used by the Arkan Trade Syndicate. Black market gene traffickers. They steal live specimens and sell fertility secrets to sterile species." Mason's jaw clenched. "How soon until they get here?" "Hours. Maybe less." He was already moving, pulling on his armor, checking the weight of a plasma rifle he barely knew how to use until recently. But the forge had changed more than his biology. It had changed his instincts. He moved sharper, smarter, faster, and when Nyari turned, she didn't see a stranded relic hunter anymore. She saw a guardian. "Promise me you'll run if it gets bad," she said, her voice suddenly quiet. He snorted. "I don't run. Mason, you're not doing this alone." Their eyes met. The connection between them thrummed like the forge itself. Powerful, wordless, permanent. She sighed, frustrated and fiercely in love. "You humans," she said, stepping into him. "So stupid, so brave, so completely irresistible." He grinned and kissed her hard. Then the alarm rang. They sprinted to the central chamber as the ceiling above them opened to the star-filled sky. 10 ships had entered orbit, all of them marked, with red barbed glyphs, Arkan insignias that meant only one thing: harvest. The lead vessel began transmitting. "Ilyari facility, this is Syndicate Extraction Team Delta 7. You are harboring unauthorized hybrid biology. Release the specimen immediately or face cleansing fire." Nyari's jaw tightened. "Specimen?" Mason growled. "They mean me?" "You," she said grimly, "and possibly what's growing inside me." For a moment, the room fell into silence. Mason looked at her. "You really think it's that far along already?" Nyari glanced down, then slowly nodded. The forge accelerated things. "You're not just compatible, you're catalytic. My body accepted the fertilization and started building immediately." He blinked. "So, we're really doing this?" She looked up, eyes glowing faintly silver. "We already did." Mason inhaled deeply, then smiled, the kind of crooked, stubborn smile that only a human on the edge of a fight could wear. "Then let's make damn sure no one takes it from us," the forge responded. Panels in the floor slid open. Armor rose from the depths, not made of metal, but living crystal. Adaptive, symbiotic, responsive to both thought and emotion. It pulsed when Mason touched it. It sang when Nyari stepped inside. Together they walked into the forge light, shining with energy and connection, minds linked by both tech and love. "This armor," Mason muttered, flexing his hand, "feels like it knows me." "It does," Nyari said. "It was waiting for you." "Why?" "Because you're the beginning." As the Arkan ships began to descend, Nyari activated the facility's outer defenses. The towers erupted with light, centuries-old plasma, coils blooming to life with blue fire. The lead ship fired first, but the forge was faster. It caught the blast mid-air, bent it, and sent it back 10 times stronger. The ship was torn in half before it could register the return signal. Mason raised a brow. That was satisfying, Nyari smirked. The forge protects its own. Alarms echoed across the chamber as enemy drop pods broke through the upper atmosphere. 20 hostiles, heavy armor, gene-suppressing grenades. "Let them come," Mason said, gripping his weapon. "I've got a few things to teach them about human superiority." He looked at Nyari. "And about what happens when someone threatens my mate." She blinked. "You just called me your... too soon?" "No," she whispered, glowing brighter. "Just... perfect." The enemy hit the ground hard, but Mason and Nyari were harder. He moved like lightning. She struck like a star. Their armor danced with light, shifting shape with every step, amplifying their movement, their thoughts, their bond. When he fired, the rifle hummed in rhythm with her heartbeat. When she spun, her blades shimmered in sync with his breath. Together, they were devastation, but more than that, they were unstoppable because they fought for something real, not duty, not genetics, but love. By the time the last invader fell, the forge had grown quiet again, calm, satisfied. Mason pulled off his helmet and exhaled. Nyari limped slightly, one arm scratched, eyes tired but shining. They stood in the wreckage of the chamber, panting, bleeding, holding each other up. "Still think I'm just a stray?" Mason asked, grinning. Nyari kissed him. "No," she whispered. "You're mine." And as they held each other, two hearts beating in time and another beginning to form inside her, the stars outside shimmered once more. This time, it wasn't a warning. It was a promise. 3 weeks later, the stars no longer watched in silence. They followed. The forge had stabilized. Nyari's womb had too. Confirmed by her own scans, the child growing inside her was healthy, thriving, strong neural growth, double heartbeat, high-density bone tissue, Eliari and human traits fused seamlessly, a child of light and chaos. Mason still couldn't believe it. "Tell me again," he said one morning, lying beside her in the crystalline sanctum bed the forge had built just for them. "This thing in you, it's ours?" Nyari smiled, all four arms wrapped gently around her belly. "Yours, mine, and the galaxy's problem if it grows up anything like you." He grinned. "We'll raise it together." "You're assuming." "I'll let you near it unsupervised." He pulled her close. "I already raised you a little." She swatted him, lightly, and kissed him before he could come up with a comeback. Outside the chamber, the ancient facility pulsed with new energy. No longer just a relic of a dying civilization, the forge was now an active, living system. Its networks had reconnected with others across distant stars. Not all responded, but some did, and from those others came messages. Other humans, other survivors, scattered, hiding, forgotten by history, but still alive. Some of them were hearing the call too. Some of them were bonding. The age of sterile species, of fading lineages, of calculated unions was ending. The future wasn't pure. It was messy, emotional, chaotic, human. One by one, other Eliari ships arrived, cautious at first but curious. Scientists, refugees, outcasts, some skeptical, some angry. But when they saw the hybrid child on Nyari's scans, when they watched her work beside Mason as an equal and a lover, even the hardest hearts began to soften. The first Council of Integration was formed. Eliari leaders voted to open the forges, to test bonds, to rebuild through connection instead of calculation. Some still resisted. One high elder called the child an abomination, until he touched Nyari's hand and felt the warmth she carried. Not heat, hope, even he couldn't argue against that. Mason became more than just a relic hunter. He became a symbol, not a warrior, not a savior, just a man who loved someone, impossible, and made the impossible happen anyway. "Does this make me king of the aliens?" he asked Nyari once, only half joking. "No," she replied, kissing his neck. "Just mine." Ships came and went, each bringing news. Alliances formed, enemies warned off, old threats reconsidered. Even the Arkan Trade Syndicate fell quiet after their defeat. Their leaders refused to acknowledge what the Forge had produced, but they never dared approach again. And then, one quiet evening, it happened. Yari clutched his hand as the chamber lights dimmed. The forge shifted, humming softly. Bioluminescent walls pulsed in rhythm with her breathing. Their child was arriving. Mason stayed by her side the entire time, not out of obligation, but because his heart wouldn't let him leave. Not even for a second. It wasn't easy. She swore in 3 different languages, broke a chair, threatened to throw him into space. But hours later, when the glowing cocoon opened, when the first cries echoed in the crystalline room, everything changed. The baby was perfect. Pale silver skin with a soft golden glow, tiny tufts of dark hair, 4 little fingers on each hand, and a stubborn cry that sounded far too human for something not even a day old. "She's beautiful," Mason whispered, holding the child. With trembling hands, Nyari smiled, exhausted, radiant. "She's ours." The forge pulsed once, a soft, low tone of approval. And then, across the galaxy, other forges echoed it, one by one, signal after signal, a symphony of rebirth. A future rewritten not by war or machines, but by love, biology, and the unexpected. Miracle of one lost human who refused to give up. Mason kissed Nyari's forehead. "We started something, didn't we?" "You did," she whispered. "By showing up, by being too stubborn to die, and by making me fall in love with you." He smirked. "Guess I've got a reputation to uphold." They sat together beneath the stars, their child cradled between them. No longer just relics, no longer just survivors. They were a family. And in the shadows of ancient technology and forgotten myths, a new story had begun, written not in data or code, but in flesh, blood, and the unstoppable will of a human. Art, because when the galaxy needed saving, it wasn't a weapon it found, it was love.